So I guess that's it for Beyond the Venue podcast. Said goodbye to, MG, the venue specialist, and in anticipation of being Dr. MG. I really wasn't sure how to close out this podcast. And so I did what you do when you don't know how to do something. I Googled it and read it, had the advice as to bring back your first guest. The Industry Shifts with Brandon Thrash. Now, I thought it was my #1 episode, most listened to of all time. But when I went in to check the stats right before making this recording, apparently yours truly has officially surpassed Industry Shifts. So Reflections on Junior Year, aka 2022, with Professor MG Hodge, with 138 listens. Industry Shifts with Brandon Thrash coming in at 116. And then apparently y'all really like the sound of my voice. Reflections on Sophomore Year, aka 2021, with MG Hodge with 95 listens. Those are the top 3. So thank you guys for actually caring about what I have to say. I wish some numbers were higher of just getting more voices out and sharing stories. But so when it comes to the advice of having your first guest back on, I have no idea how we would have made that work. Between our 2 different schedules, Brandon is still killing it over at Middle Child Clubhouse. Didn't even think it was feasible. However, I do highly, if you haven't listened to it already, I'm sure he's going to probably listen to this and send this out to everyone he knows so his numbers can beat mine. But he makes a really excellent point about the true cost of a burger. And I feel like we have really seen that in motion with inflation over the last couple of years, and just not even, when everybody complains about everything's expensive, thinking about costs that go in. And this is an entirely another episode, obviously, capitalism and all these terrible things. So that's a conversation for another time. But what I will say, so a couple other fun stats. Beyond the Venue podcast has 2,256 downloads as of Wednesday, October 2nd of 2024. So that's of all time over 4 seasons. So again, season 1 just started out as a pandemic project. Everything kind of happens for a reason. Huge shout out to all of my guests that I've had over these last 4 seasons. It's been a wild couple of years. So this season, the season 4, I wanted to offer an inside look into what life was like in higher education. And so you got to hear from a lot of my fellow students and colleagues and professors and folks who have gone on to defend their dissertation. And so while we are officially done with Beyond the Venue podcast, I absolutely loved what Sabina said in episode 7 about utilizing a podcast as professional development. So I definitely see that being an opportunity in my future. I am also absolutely terrible with social media. But in season 2, when I interviewed my friend Hillary, she said I'm Googleable. So I will say the same thing about myself, that if you ever randomly catch this podcast and you're like, oh, I wonder what MG Hodge or Mary Grace Hodge is up to these days, hopefully it's something good. And I also need to update the name of my website. I still have my website because I had worked so hard to put all of the podcast episodes up on my website, but I haven't changed, I guess, is it the domain name? Is that the right nomenclature? That it's still mgthevenuespecialist.com, but I updated, I guess, a year and a half ago. I took down all of the business side of things of me being MG the Venue Specialist and the blog posts and such, but you can still find all podcast episodes up. And I will continue to pay the nominal fee to Buzzsprout to continue to have my episodes available indefinitely. So hopefully they keep the price the same and aren't going to jack it up on me, and these podcasts will be available forever. So to anyone who's ever listened to this podcast, especially to people who have listened to a lot of it, if not all of it, thank you so much for following me on this journey. It's been such a wild roller coaster, not just over the last couple of years, but pretty much over the last 25. So I love the ability to be able to continue to lean into my backstory and all the experiences that I've had to help propel me forwards.